We're live.
We are live.
Welcome to Just Between You and Me. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Michael. And today we are going to talk about being yourself in connection.
Being your authentic self in connection.
Being your authentic self in connection. Mm-hmm. There is plenty to unpack here. Mm-hmm. So for me, being myself in authentic connection means being vulnerable. It means being in tune with myself and the feelings that come up in me, and actually giving voice to those or giving expression to those non-verbally or verbally. It can mean a lot of different things, and it can look like a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an all too common experience in our modern society to hold back parts of ourselves that we're scared will not be accepted if we bring them forward. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a practice to find the safe and supportive even space within yourself to, building on self-acceptance, to accept and allow those different parts of yourself to be. Mm-hmm. And then to find safe connections and supportive connections to be those parts of yourself and to discover even parts of yourself and bring them forward.
Find or create, because sometimes it's about creating those around you rather than looking for them as if if you can't find them.
Sure. Create
them.
Sure.
And create the openings to invite people into authenticity for themselves, like we talked about in one of our earlier videos. Mm-hmm. Learning to invite others into their authenticity actually supports you in being able to be authentic within that connection, within that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think there's a real element of that self-acceptance, because once you accept self, whether someone else accepts you or not may not matter as much.
Sure. And I would say it's pretty universal. When someone is not accepting something about you, it's directly indicative of them not accepting something within themselves.
Yeah, and when we're not accepting something from someone else, it's indicative that we're not accepting self in some way.
Really healthy to develop that mentality or way to look at yourself and others and look at, is that the dynamic playing out? Why am I not accepting or not being accepted?
Yeah. And oftentimes inviting acceptance of inviting others to accept themselves is a really natural way to be able to be authentically yourself, because in compassionately allowing others to self-accept, we create the space to be authentic in the area, and therefore are able more effectively to be our authentic self in that connection. And so it really it all encompasses it together.
Yeah, I'd say that's certainly possible, and it's long term, I would say definitely true. You invite someone to be their authentic selves, and they almost naturally want to invite the same for you. I think there is evolution there, and there may be people who have, a ways to go before they can invite that in return.
Yeah,
so don't expect it.
But also don't expect it to not happen.
100%.
Don't set it up so that you believe that it won't, because it can. Right, and lean into that ability to try it on.
Yeah.
And it might take a conversation or two or three, or it might take, a year or two or three, but don't assume that it will take a year. It could just be a conversation.
100%. And I think the thing that just came up in me is indicative of the fear that could come up in anyone who's stepping into this, and the invitation to lean into that and step over that and feel it, but then lean into inviting people anyway is really valuable.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there is also a strong connection here to that trust piece. That we talked about in our last video. When we lean into trust of self, not just accepting self, but trusting that we've got this and that the person in front of us has got themselves, we can lean into being more authentically ourselves. We don't have to feel like we're carrying the burden of the other person to try and create the authenticity if we can trust self and trust others.
Absolutely. And then there's a whole lot of space when you lean into self-trust and self-acceptance and accepting the others and trusting the others. There's a whole lot of space to be your whole self. And that could look like being fun. It could look like your inner child playing. It could look like just talking about things you never dreamed you would express and talk about to other people. There's a whole gauntlet of things that can just... There's a whole there's a whole universe inside everybody. You'd be amazed at what spills out when we take our walls down and just open up to be authentic in connection.
And of course, we don't mean like dismantle all your walls today. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to take a couple of bricks down.
Right.
And like peer over the wall for a second and
that's a
see what's
beautiful
available.
description.
And then maybe take a few more bricks down and then peer over that wall and then take a few more bricks down. And suddenly you realize the wall's not there. That's this whole the whole idea of like in a couple of conversations or in over time.
Right.
Like just, you don't have to dismantle everything right away. Like
Right.
in fact, I don't recommend that.
Totally.
I recommend, taking it at your pace, but still moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's just the realness of life is like you're not from nothing to everything in a day. You're not like, oh, I have this goal, all of a sudden I'm there. It's like it's a process. It's a process to take your walls down. It's a process to open your heart. It's a process to be authentic in connection.
It's a process to trust. It's a process to accept.
Yes.
And these are all journeys, and we invite you into them.
100%, and we're still on them too. Not sitting here saying that we've done this and we're complete and we're just offering it. No, we're on the journey too.
That's why we want to invite you guys in,
Yes.
just because we're on it too. So come join us.
Yes, 100%.
So if you enjoyed today's video, like, share, or subscribe. Also, if you guys have any questions or any comments, please leave that in the comment section down below. And you can contact us in any of our social medias or via email in the description down below.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Oh, one more thing. We are starting up our Patreon page to dive deeper into some of these topics, this one and others. So if you're interested in that, look for that in the coming weeks. And so thank you for joining us on Just Between You and Me. I'm Michele.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Mwah.